Meeting for January 22nd, 2025. Roll call, please.
Washburn.
Here.
Meyer.
Here.
Reiser. Rizar.
Here.
Bhatia.
Here.
Baznowski.
Here.
Van Beckham.
Here.
Driver.
Here. Next will be the approval of the minutes for December 18th, 2024.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes with a note adding that Commissioners Mayer and Bazinowski were excused from that meeting, not present and excused.
Okay.
I second motion.
We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and the minutes carry. Next will be under new business, 4811 County Trunk H Site Plan Review SP 2427.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, just to start off, you're looking at updated 2025 staff report for you all. So we've added in some information at the top just after the meeting. Let me know if you have any feedback, but we're trying to consolidate and clarify some of this stuff for you all and add some extra maps and things that we discuss about within the contents of the staff report and summary that you have. For this specific application, Kevin Lynch, on behalf of ATC, applied to construct a 12-acre electrical substation. ATC will own, operate, and maintain the substation via an easement from Microsoft. The applicant proposed a 24-foot wall to enclose the crushed stone substation yard. The site will drain into the property stormwater system, and ATC will access the site via private driveway. Substation will include high-voltage electrical equipment, including transformers, circuit breakers, electrical bus bars, and various steel support structures. It will also include prefabricated electrical equipment control buildings. ATC will only activate the proposed site lighting when the personnel are at the site due to an electrical emergency. The site will remain unoccupied for the remainder of the time. And then per condition 1, the applicant applied for a zoning variance. So we'll get that in a sec. This substation is really similar to the one on the east side of the tracks that was approved as part of Microsoft's 3B, Area 3B, their first phase of their development. So it's a very similar situation here. It follows the land use element of the multi-jurisdictional comp plan for Racine County 2035. The master bike plan recommends a bicycle pathway along H, which exists, and the park and open space plan for the Village of Mount Pleasant identifies the area as a priority protection area under the Pike River Watershed Plan. This designation emphasizes restoration where possible, natural stormwater elements, and native plantings. Microsoft Corporation, as part of the larger parcel which they own, is designing the restoration of the Sorensen Creek through the site, north of the ATC easement area, which will completely restore the existing drainage ditch into a naturalized creek. No proposed open space or park lands exist for public property ownership. The application complies with the base district's regulations. The village staff viewed the proposed buildings as accessory buildings within the ATC easement area and the whole property. The property doesn't contain any overlay districts, and the C4 district permits utilities and public services by right. The types of these electrical substations are customarily found in conjunction with the principal use of the subject property, which, just as a reminder, is warehousing, wholesaling, and freight movement under 4, which includes data centers. The application does not meet the minimum roof slope of 512. That's the one condition that we have. The outdoor regulations of the division do not apply for outdoor lighting used for emergency equipment and work conducted in the interest of law enforcement or for public health, safety, or welfare, which is something that we previously discussed with their first substation in 3B, whereas most of the site lights, both in height and in color temperature, don't comply with our outdoor lighting regs, but again, they're off and only on in the event of emergency, so they're exempt. For fences and walls, due to the code update that we contemplated last year, they're allowed to apply for alternative compliance for the 24-foot walls instead of needing a variance, which they did and we granted because it specifically calls out utility structures as something that can have taller walls in the alternative compliance section. Finally, the utility operates the property and is therefore tax exempt, but the staff report for SP 2423 includes the fiscal impact analysis for the larger Microsoft sites collectively together. This went through the site plan review process, which we laid out in your staff report, and the village staff recommends that the Plan Commission moves to recommend approval of SB 2427, subject to the condition within the endnotes, and that condition is either they amend the roof slope, they enclose a flat roof with parapets, a minimum of 36 inches high, apply for alternative compliance, or apply for a zoning variance, and they applied for a zoning variance, which is in front of the Board of Appeals tonight at 5:30 p.m. So this approval should be subject to the Board of Appeals granting that variance. That's all I have. Pretty simple for a big utility site and structure. I can answer any specific zoning questions that you have.
Any questions? Go ahead, Ram.
Sam, a quick question. I'm a little confused because as you drive on Highway H, where your location shows, there's already an ATC a substation over there.
Yeah,
So
what
is
you're
this
looking
any-
at is the zoning map. That color is not highlighting the specific property, it's just zoned differently.
Okay, I guess my question is, there already is a substation which was built in 2018, 2019 for the Foxconn project. So
Uh-huh.
is this a new one they're building or what?
Correct, yep. This is an easement area that's specific to the Microsoft site. So essentially, the big power lines go into the public large substation, and then they feed out to the individual data center sites, which have their smaller individual substations connected to them on the site. So this is one of those kind of smaller data center specific substations. It is different than the large regional one that the tall power lines feed directly into.
So this will be the north of the one that we have right now?
It'll be south.
South, okay.
So it'll be closer to KR than it is Braun
Yeah,
Road.
because again, as I said, I thought the gray area was, so that's the area, so it'll be somewhere here.
Yeah, it's kind of tucked up against, if you look at the site plans, generally, they're a little bit hard to tell because the site is so big, but it's really tucked up against the east side along the railroad tracks is where this one will lie. So it'll kind of mirror more or less the opposite side. We're in 3B east of the tracks. The substation is on the west side of the site, tucked up against the railroad tracks on the, so it'll look kind of like mirror images of each other with some
Yeah.
minor differences in the site plan due to the creek and stuff, but yeah, it'll look pretty similar to what's out there now.
Well, thank you. Looks
Tom.
good to me.
Sam, I've got questions about the tax exempt status of this. The property underlying ground is owned by Microsoft, which is a for-profit company the last time I looked. And then this ATC facility strikes me as only going to serve Microsoft. So it's for a distinctly private purpose. So why is a facility with a private purpose serving only a private profitable company sitting on that company's land tax exempt?
Oh, sorry. I'm not actually sure how, I should have worded that better. I'm not sure how the assessor's gonna apportion the value of this specific portion of the site, whether it be taxable or not. You'd have to talk to the village assessor about that. What I meant to say is generally ATC structures are tax exempt. But in this specific circumstance, I'm not exactly sure how they're gonna apportion it out versus Microsoft owning it and then the easement area. It's not my expertise, so you just have to talk to the assessor about it.
And I understand it's a little bit outside of our, jurisdiction to get concerned with it, but given that you mentioned it and it was in your prior notes, I
Yeah,
just was
I should have
curious.
written that more clearly. I meant that generally ATC is tax exempt user, but what I meant to highlight is that we did a fiscal analysis for the larger Microsoft sites, which more than covers kind of the public, even if this was tax exempt, this area of the site, the remainder of the Microsoft sites more than cover their public obligations. So, worst case scenario from the village's perspective, when ATC isn't paying taxes on this, we are still more than covered by the Microsoft development. On top of that, local governments do get shared revenue payments directly from the state for utility structures, so that is meant to help compensate that. So we've talked about that before in regards to solar panel installations and other things. So
Because the first ATC facility, the existing one, has some public purpose to it. I mean, it's not just serving one
exactly.
person, okay.
Yep.
All right, thanks. And then this 20-foot high wall around this, obviously that's an awfully tall wall. That's the same height as the other facility has?
Yep. So Microsoft has 30-foot tall walls. Those are mostly for some security, but also for sound. So that's why those are a bit taller, where the utility uses 24-foot tall ones. And those should look basically exactly the same as what's out there now for the other two substation sites, pretty close.
And the fire department and the chief, they all look at these really high-intensity, huge substations. I mean, they've all checked that out and
Yeah,
they're
they're
comfortable
on,
with it?
yeah, the eventual electrical and building permits, they're all reviewing on it, so.
All right, thanks. I don't have anything else.
Mr. Chairman,
Ram?
we're following up, Commissioner Van Beckham question about the assessor Sam. I recommend that when this, assuming or when it's approved, it come to the village board on Monday. I suggest that you make a note to ask the village assessor to answer that question about the tax. He should be present at the village board meeting before the final approval.
Okay.
Just my suggestion, yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Sam? If not, recommendation? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Plan Commission moves to recommend approval of SP-24-27, subject to the condition contained within the end notes. as
Second.
presented.
And might add, subject to the approval for the zoning meeting tonight.
That's fine.
You have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, any public comment? If you'd come up, name and address, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Facklum. I'm here representing ATC, and the address is W234 N2000 Ridgeview Parkway Court in Waukesha, Wisconsin. I'm just here to express support for this project. We are working to serve and construct this substation on behalf of the Microsoft company, and we are working with the village to adhere to all the requirements as necessary, and are here to answer any questions if there are any.
Commissioners, any questions of Chris?
Just
Go ahead.
one quick question. Does this substation, is it engineered to provide, at least have the capacity or the ability to expand capacity to provide for whatever, for the future expansion that Microsoft has proposed, or will we be seeing more of these substations with each phase?
This substation is designed specifically to support the data center that's at the location that it's serving. There is a small portion in the substation itself for expansion, but not specifically for other data centers that may come in the future.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Chris?
I have questions, but they have nothing to do with this. I want to know if the power goes out, can we tap into that substation? In other words, how is that protected so Microsoft's power never goes out?
There's redundancies in the system, so multiple transmission lines will serve the substation. There are looped substations in between that are feeding from the Mount Pleasant substation, for instance. So there's redundancies built in that way. There are, some sorts of backup power in that circumstance, but no guarantees. I guess I'll also say that these structures, and as we mentioned with like the control buildings, we are designing these to large standards. So for instance, the control building is able to support an EF3 tornado in the instance of that happening. Any questions regarding that?
No, thank you.
Too technical.
I just want to make, yeah.
Tom?
One more, just out of curiosity. This substation doesn't generate any power. Where's the power coming from that flows into the substation?
From across the ATC grid. So, there's transmission lines that will come from across the state that will feed into the Mount Pleasant substation, which is the ATC-owned property. And from there, as described earlier, there's lines that come out that will feed this and provide the power to this specific substation.
So it's not tied into any one generation source, it's just, it ties into the grid.
Correct.
Thanks.
Interesting.
Okay, yep, go ahead.
Chris, I'm just curious,
Curious commission.
Yeah.
I'm just
Well,
curious.
we are, that's it.
I don't have a question on the substation, that's what I used to do in my, when I used to get a paycheck. Now my question is, what's the voltage output? What KV line is going to the Microsoft, unless it's a,
So coming into the substation is 138 kilovolts, and going, there's a transformer in there that transforms the energy from 138 kV down to 24.9 kV.
24.9?
Correct.
Thank you. And what's the megawatt rating?
That's a We Energies question, unfortunately, not ATC.
No problem, I was just curious.
Of course.
How big what the capacity is. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Any further questions for Chris? If not, we have a motion and a second. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chris. Next will be 1625 Derby Avenue Certified Survey Map, CSM 24-7. Robin?
Howdy. Alrighty, so this is, down by the lake, a little bit further away. So the CSM, proposes splitting an existing 0.38 acre RL2 parcel into 2 RL2 lots on the corner of Derby Avenue and Sheridan Road in the Lake Park neighborhood. The existing legal non-conforming triple lot was the combination of lots 1, 2, and 3 in the original South Lawn Addition subdivision plat from 1959. There's a lot of that in this area, very non-standard lot combinations and splits and stuff like that. They would give out lots in quarter, you take a quarter lot, you take a half lot. It's, if you look at the county maps, all the lines are really messed up because of this, but this kind of explains how that a triple lot, happens. So the division will create 2 legally conforming lots in the RL2 district. Lot 1, the parcel with the existing home, would be 8,026 square feet. Lot 2, the newly created parcel, would be 8,638 square feet. The new Lot 2 is developable by right and will be the site of a new duplex. No new public roadways required for this infill development. Sidewalks will be added along the frontages of Sheridan Road and Derby Avenue. You also see the site history there. The zoning went from R40E to RL2 when we redid our zoning code, and then it goes all the way back to the subdivision plat in the 50s. It complies with the comp plan. We do recommend bicycle lane improvements along Sheridan Road, but this application is not responsible for those. Some of the design standards, we classify Sheridan Road as a land access street. However, the property doesn't actually have proper right-of-way along the frontage, so that just has to be adjusted. There's a requirement that the applicant must install 4 to 6 foot sidewalks with 1 foot buffer along the property frontage. From our Public Works Director, Tony Byer, reviewed this and recommended limiting driveway access to just on Derby Avenue west of the proposed building to keep a safe distance from the intersection. The application does require street trees. That's the subdivision ordinance requires those. They didn't supply that, but they just need to update it with, I think it's 1 tree for every 50 feet. And so that would just be 2 or 3. The fiscal analysis is actually really rosy on this. It doesn't actually hit the 40-to-1 target, but the public, even if you basically assign the existing roads as they were to this property, it actually is a positive benefit because it's an infill. The current, as the property current stands, it's basically a 3-to-1 public to private ratio, and now it's going to go up to 9-to-1. It's between a doubling and tripling of the overall tax ROI, as you were, to the village. So, I mean, we expect, and this is a very lowball estimate, the assessable value of the combined property, and then it will be 2, but the overall will jump from 233 as existing now to 553. When I used that estimate, confirmed that estimate with our tax assessor, he said that was a very conservative estimate given the recent climate, but a brand new house in that neighborhood is big positive. So that is it. We recommend approval, and really glad to see small developers take advantage of, you know, the options that we have to provide new housing without a huge amount of public assistance or new infrastructure or anything like that. It's a win-win for everybody. Any questions for me?
I do. And you're not gonna believe this, but I'm gonna question the sidewalks here. Because they go to nowhere. And I know, I always like to see sidewalks, but is there some other way that we can do that as far as in lieu of on this property? Because they're gonna go nowhere.
So this one is it's an urban cross-section street, and it's in a residential neighborhood, so the code doesn't have the in lieu of option for this one. I mentioned this to the property owner, and they didn't seem to have that big of an issue with it, considering that even adding this section would be helpful, because considering they're not along Sheridan Road. I know of a couple other sort of lot divisions that will kick this in along Sheridan in the near future. And so this is also kind of a good candidate for using the in lieu of fees that we've been saving from other projects. So the village can come in and kind of fill in those gaps. I think this would be a really nice area to utilize that in, because there's a lot of people that live near there and would be able to use that sidewalk. So I think it's a start. I don't definitely understand your sentiment, but I think it's a good candidate for filling in the sidewalks and eventually getting it sidewalked, at least along Sheridan. Derby is less likely to be high on that priority list, but so.
But you're gonna require it along Derby as well, correct?
Correct.
And they're gonna have curb cuts then too, both ways, both?
There's only one curb cut, and that will be on Derby. So the driveway will
No,
be
no,
on.
I'm talking about the sidewalk curb cuts. You're gonna have to have access to that from the road. So that's gonna be another expense for them, probably both ways, correct? Both? Only what? No, but you're gonna have, he's on the corner. You're gonna have a sidewalk going along Sheridan and along Derby. You're gonna have to have one entrance of a ramp on each side of that corner. Okay.
Oh,
I have one question.
Tom?
This talks about creating a 33 feet right-of-way along Sheridan. And looking at the CSM, maybe I'm missing something, but I just don't see there's enough land to create a 33-foot right-of-way.
it starts from the midpoint of
Sheridan Road?
Yeah, so when it says variable width, that's because it hasn't really been divided. If you look at sort of a map, that you can get that jack-o'-lantern pattern, especially in rural areas where before your property basically went to the middle of the road, even though technically you didn't own the middle of the road. But in CSMs and other sort of lot divisions since then, we've been making that clear and assigning that public right-of-way and removing that from the property. So you basically see a property line and then it says public right-of-way. This is one of those instances. When this subdivision was originally platted, it went to the middle of the road.
Well, since you're proposing a 33-foot right-of-way, I take it you're confident that going to the middle of Sheridan Road, there's 33 feet plus?
Sure. I mean, if there's some sort of instance where it's not the public works director, like we have options on accepting different variable widths and stuff like that, but clarifying it on the map of where it is essential.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead, Nancy?
So as a follow-up to Tom's question, Mr. Van Beckham's question regarding that, is the CSM that we're looking at right now reflect the right-of-way that's needed to be taken, or it needs to be adjusted?
It needs to be adjusted.
All right, so we're confident they've got some extra setback room, it looks like, so they can push the house over a little bit.
Yeah, they even adjusted some of the lot divisions to kind of make sure everything was compliant. So they gave a little bit off of lot 2 to make took away from lot 1 to make it 80 feet. So it's been, they've been really easy about adjusting those things to
been
make
vetted,
things.
yeah. And so regards to sidewalks, is the only sidewalk gonna be required for Lot 2? In other words, are they gonna have to run the sidewalk past the existing home on Derby?
That's a good question, Sam. Yeah.
Okay, so it's really, it is good connectivity there off of the road. I don't know that I understand, Mr. Mayor's point regarding what's gonna happen there on Sheridan Road in regards to ramping to get up to the sidewalk. In other words, that's a state trunk highway.
No, it's not. Not there. It is a little bit to the south when it merges into 32. Right there, it's a local road.
This is
Okay, all right,
along the lake.
all right, thank you.
Any other questions for Robin? Any public comment?
Is the applicant here? Do they want to say anything? Yeah. Did you want to chime in at all? Oh, yeah. If the applicant is here, if you guys have any questions of them, otherwise, all good.
Okay. Did you want to speak? Please go ahead. Name and address. We'll just get to know you.
Tom Cicchini, 3125 Southwood Drive, Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin. Property owner at Derby.
And you understand the discussion we're having about the
I
sidewalk?
do, yeah. Robin had contacted me earlier and discussed the sidewalks. I'm actually in favor of the sidewalks. I think that we need to have more sidewalks in Mount Pleasant.
Excellent.
So I was not opposed to putting the sidewalk in.
Okay. Any other questions for Tom? No? All righty.
Okay,
Thank you, Tom.
thank you.
If there's no further discussion, motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the certified survey map application for 1625 Derby Avenue, CSM 24-7, subject to the review comments, subject to the conditions contained 1 through 4. Conditions 1 through 4 contained at the end of the memo.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck, Tom. Thank you. Next is 13117 Spring Street Certified Survey Map, CSM 24-8. Sam.
This certified survey map, if my computer will move, proposed consolidating 2 parcels, dedicating a portion of right-of-way for a portion of Carrington Boulevard, and leaving the remaining land within one of the parcels as Lot 2. The new lots 1 and 2 are developable, subject to some environmental corridor restrictions which are shown on the map. The application follows the land use element of the comp plan. The bike plan does not consider any improvements for the properties, and the park and open space plan shows the environmental corridors within the properties as protected open space lands. The subdivision ordinance requires that they identify a protection mechanism for those lands, and they chose a conservation easement, which is on top of it and shown on the map.
Could we have the map put up?
No,
We're still looking at Derby Avenue.
there you
Yeah,
go.
there we go, thanks.
The village and Continental Properties have discussed a development agreement regarding the installation of Carrington Boulevard. That is currently under discussion with the village board. This section requires an agreement to install the required improvements, which is a condition. The applicant did not add the RM2 zoning to the face of the map, which is a second condition. Due to block length requirements, the village staff required 1 public roadway or cross-access easement through Lot 2 to Rosewood Lane eastwards. The applicant did not show the easement on the map, which is the third condition we'll get to in a second. They're aware of that cross-access easement, so we'll talk about that in a sec. The length of the block is greater than 1,200 linear feet, as I just said, east to west for Lot 1. But per ordinance, this configuration complies due to the preservation of the large environmental corridor within Lot 1. The length of the block is also greater than 1,200 linear feet north to south for Lot 2, the village staff noted that within their site plan review comments and also within the condition that I just discussed. So essentially, they're allowed to have a long block along Spring Street for Lot 1 because we're requiring a north-south road to chunk that up would cut directly through environmental corridor, and the ordinance calls out that blocks can be longer to protect environmental resources, where there are no such resources that affect Lot 2 eastwards, which is why they need to provide that cross-access easement through Lot 2. If you remember, when all the way back to the Leo Living site plan from a few years ago, we also had a cross-access easement across that property. The two property owners are negotiating where that final location will be, but they're both aware and they both accept that there will need to be some sort of cross-access thing there. Some of the reasons for that specifically, other than the block length, that we didn't get to in the summary but are called out in the ordinance, are access to things like parks, schools, and churches. And there is both a church and a future public park directly east of Lot 2 here. So getting people across that site in a direct manner to that would be a benefit to the traveling public and everyone. So moving on to the fiscal analysis here, because we only have some of the development projected, and that is for Lot 2, and no development projected for Lot 1. We used some of those numbers, but the village could cover its long-term projected infrastructure and service expenses with the combined property value of about $57 million. Considering the zoning for Lot 1 and submitted site plan for Lot 2 and the property shared access to Carrington Boulevard, the proposed multi-unit residential development for Lot 2 will likely cover a large portion of that value. However, that property lies within TID 7, so any development incentives for the subject property may also affect those projections. That said, regardless, any commercial or industrial development on Lot 1 would likely increase the total property value in combination with Lot 2 far over the projected minimum required for that stretch of Carrington Boulevard. Spring Street, of course, is a county road, so we don't maintain that or pay to upgrade it. For the review process, this went through the minor land division review for certified survey maps, as you have there in your summary. And the staff recommends that the Plan Commission moves to recommend approval of CSM 24-8, subject to the conditions contained within the endnotes. Those are entering into a development agreement, agreeing to install the required improvements, to update the zoning map, or the zoning on the face of the CSM map to add the RM2 zoning designation and information. 3, the applicant shall, before recording the CSM, show one roadway or accessway easement from Carrington Boulevard right-of-way to Rosewood Lane eastwards, per our comments for the site plan review and the code. Alternatively, the applicant can also provide us a separate easement document for staff review and approval before recording the CSM. So however they want to record the cross-access is fine with us. It's simple to put it on the map, but they can also give us a separate easement document as well to show that cross-access. The applicant, as I said, is aware of that, so we're fine with either. And that's about it. I can answer any questions.
If it's that simple to show it on the map, why couldn't it have been done before it came before us?
Because to my understanding, they're still negotiating the final location with the adjacent property owner. So, we want both property owners to agree at the same time as opposed to one forcing the other hand. And we'd like to review them both cumulatively together to see their impact on both sites.
And shouldn't all of that happen before the CSM comes to us for approval?
Should it? I mean, there's a lot of moving parts in these deals. Like, someone is trying to buy Lot 2 while the landowner is trying to create Lot 2 and dedicate the public right-of-way, which is also under review in the Public Works Department. This cross-access is on top of it. So we're just trying to check all the boxes. Sometimes those are moving concurrently, and I think that easement is one of those things. So
I think it's nice that the staff tries to be accommodating with developers and flexible at the same time. I think it's nice if projects come to this commission as final as possible, and sometimes I think things, again, from my perspective, I wasn't in any of your conversations, and I don't know the bigger picture, but as I've shared before, sometimes I get the sense that the balance gets tipped a little bit to things coming to us, not final, not fluid. This is not a preliminary survey map. This isn't a preliminary approval. Just like on the prior project, the right-of-way could have been shown. And I think if you discuss this with people far enough in advance, I'm not making a big issue out of it, but I'm stating my often stated
Oh, believe you me, Tom, we are being, for lack of a better term, meaner to applicants with the understanding that the Plan Commission would like cleaner things in front of them. In this specific circumstance, the reason why we're willing to let that move forward is just due to all those moving parts. I mean, due to someone trying to buy Lot 2, there's closing deadlines and, contracts that have ticking clocks and stuff. Because we want the project to happen and a development agreement is already under negotiation with the village board, we felt comfortable moving it forward. Ultimately, not showing it on the map is we're a little bit agnostic to exactly where that happens. If we had more of a specific feeling of it has to be at this specific point, we would want that shown on the map. But as long as the block lengths are under 1,200 feet and there is that cross access, we kind of left it up to the two adjacent property owners to negotiate. So we're just like, you tell us where it's going to be, we'll review it, but as long as kind of within the boundaries of the code and they're not putting it like all the way to the south or all the way to the north against the other public roadways, then it can be somewhere in the middle and we're open to wherever they want it.
Just so staff understands, at least again from my own perspective, there's no, we'll have 3 or 4 conditions. There's no deadlines for these conditions to being satisfied. I don't know whether this simple matter is going to get resolved in a week, or it could be 3 months, or it never happens. Yet we've approved a CSM with conditions, and the conditions never get fulfilled, and again, I don't know.
There are deadlines. Most of these applications expire within a year of submittal if they don't update them. So we just go and close them out. That happens every now and then. Unless there are other specific deadlines noted within the ordinance, but for the vast majority, it's a year from application.
And just understand, I have a lot of confidence in you fellows, so it's not that I think you're not going to be diligent, but at the same time, final approval is final approval, and it should be on a final product. And if you need to preach that a little bit more to some of the applicants, and again, I'm not just picking on today's people, but
Yeah, no, I get it, and we have taken that seriously, and we are working to streamline some of those processes. Notably, the village is switching some of its online permitting, so we're reviewing that whole process again in the next couple months. So we'll continue to make those refinements, but we understand that you guys want as clean as possible when it comes to you. So,
all right, well, thanks.
Planning Commission and Village Board, CSMs are absolutely not final until they are signed by the clerk and then recorded at the county. So that's when they finally get sealed. And so the conditions, the clerk won't sign it unless those have been met and all that sort of stuff. The other thing is, we mentioned this to the site plan process back in the fall, but where this actually gets, where roadways and stuff like that, those things pop up and can be enforced as the CSM process. That's where it belongs, so that's why it came up later. But they've known it for a while.
yeah, and they're working and negotiating with the adjacent property owner, who's also negotiating in good faith on the other side. So last I heard is they have a location, they're just kind of finalizing the engineering details of it, and we should have that exhibit shortly.
Are we gonna get this, are we gonna get to see this map again once the things are in there, or is it?
Not if you recommend approval, no, it would go directly to the village board, and then staff would clean up the conditions. The only way you'd see it again is if you table it, which you always have the option to do if there are too many conditions or you want it to re-review any specific thing. You can table these if you want. In this situation, I would recommend approving it just because there are closing deadlines and stuff to keep this project moving forward. We'd like this one to move forward, and we'll always tell you when that is a priority. I think in this case it is. It's in a tax increment district. There's a lot of moving parts that we kind of want to see this one get done. It's already been delayed so much due to some of the water disagreements with the city of Racine, which made the news last year. So we're kind of trying to make up for lost time because we were all sitting around waiting for a good 6 months to a year last year, just kind of twiddling our thumbs on that.
In regards to this, because you're talking about having RM2 put on the map, but you're only talking about Lot 2.
Correct. Yep. So they already acknowledged the existing zoning for Lot 1. They just did not for Lot 2.
Because it talks about this being parcel size of 68 acres. Well, that's actually the whole thing. So this is specifically for Lot 2 only, east of
Yes.
Carrington.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Any future development on Lot 1 will need to come in for a zoning change. Right now, it's just ag.
Well, it says right now it's C3.
Oh, you're right, sorry, it is C3. We did rezone it as a part of a different zoning thing. I actually just caught that late last week, but yes, when we did the zoning update for Educators Credit Union, that whole area was updated to C3. You're right, so it
Yep.
should be C3 and RM2.
Okay.
Nancy?
Mr. Chairman, regards the notes on the roadways and so forth, this reminds me of an item we looked at last fall for the Hintz property, where we requested that they put a road on there as a plan commission. And unfortunately, the village board overrode that, and I was very disappointed in that. And I guess I'd like to know, is that property that we did that on directly north of this, on the north side of Spring Street, isn't it?
No, it's a good 2 miles north of this.
It's further north?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but ultimately, it's the connection continuing on that we wanted to make.
Yes, this is the other end.
And it
yep.
was acknowledged to me by someone on the board after the meeting that they made a mistake in not supporting staff. So I'm gonna support staff all the way on this one. And I will be loud and clear on that at the village board as well. In regards to the east-west roadways, again, I think that typically on a CSM, you like to see as many easements on there as possible prior to recording, because it's a title issue, isn't it, Tosh? And I'm sure that's where he's coming from in his questioning it. We like to see everything on the original document because you don't want it to get lost in title down the road. So as a courtesy to the Plan Commission, if I'm willing to support, you know, them having time to set this up, if they can put something on this certified survey map prior to recording that shows that potential connectivity, it would be greatly appreciated, because in perpetuity, we think it's important for title down the road and so forth. So I'm not sure if the group is here or not, but I don't see Nielsen, Manson, and Barber, but I think that would be a courtesy to us, but it's not gonna kill me if it's not on there, but I think for them as well. And also, these are easements. Easements can be vacated and moved as site planning on Lot 1 comes along. It may alter that a little bit, I get that, but that's all part of the planning process, the review process, and why we have a process, so that those kind of things, and we're undoing them all over the place, aren't we? On Microsoft, we're combining properties, we're taking out roadways that are in the comp plan that now are relevant to the actual situation. And I think that's the important level that we need to be attaining to, is as they fill in and as the other areas develop, those roadways become permanently identified through that planning and site plan review process. So I support this as it's shown, and I did have a question regarding the conservation easement. So in many communities, a conservation easement is something that comes with actual ownership of the land by a land trust or something. What's your vision for conservation easement on this?
Really, it's just prohibiting development within that easement area while it's privately owned. I think the village, right now, it's not identified as a land for public ownership in our park and open space plan. It's just identified as an area that's supposed to be protected from development. If it were identified for public ownership, then we would want to negotiate a more detailed purchase agreement or access rights or things like that. But because the Park and Open Space Plan doesn't identify it as that, we haven't in there. That's not to say we couldn't update that in the future. I doubt any of these property owners really want to maintain this in the long run, but as it stands now, because it's parceled off between like 3 or 4, that environmental corridor crosses like 3 or 4 different parcels, including like the Aurora Hospital and some other odds and ends. We're fine as it is now, and if the village wants to kind of consolidate that together down the road, I think that should be more through the next update to the Park and Open Space Plan.
Well, I can see that's why you've identified all the line details, as the line tables in great detail to delineate that conservation easement area. But there's nothing in the notes regarding what is a conservation area or what is its intended. In other words, I think it's a wetland and natural resource area. To me, if it's a conservation area, then they're doing something to it. They're updating it, they're maintaining it, they're burning it. There's a plan, a stewardship plan behind that. I don't see that as being required here. So I guess I'm questioning the terminology.
Yeah, it's just they're pulling it from our ordinance, but I think that's a good note. We can look at the terminology and clarify
Maybe
some
add
of
a
that.
note that just is more specific to what can and can't be done there.
Yeah, I would be open to that if you want to add that as a condition to it, just to clarify, like no development allowed in the easement area.
Again, in our code, I think we have some specific language as to what's allowed in wetlands and what isn't. And
Yeah,
it's
we do.
No dredging, no this, no that. So yes, that would be my recommendation, to add more clarification to that.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Is there clarification in there for what it is required for maintenance of it?
There is not.
There's nothing.
No. Because it's not publicly owned, generally, no, it's not specified for that type of thing. They can give us that information if they want, but it's not required. It's just to protect the area from development.
Yeah. That's why I think if we add a simple note from our code that talks about what's allowed.
Yep.
That in itself is maintenance, because they are allowed to take out dead trees. They are allowed to clear invasive species if they want, so, but that's voluntary at that point.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to make it, more than that. Thank you.
Any other questions for Sam? Is the applicant here? Anything you would like to add? No? Okay. All right. Any other public comment? If not, then I'm looking for a motion.
Nancy, you want to make a motion with the?
Sure. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to approve the 13117 Spring Street Certified Survey Map CSM 24-8, subject to the conditions as outlined in the staff report, as well as my recommendation to add a further note to the CSM, better defining the wetland conservation area, and notes regarding what is allowed there.
Got it.
Second. Motion and second. Any further discussion? And then I'll call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I already asked. All right.
No staff reports today, just a reminder that to give us any feedback individually from you all on the new formatting for the staff reports. If you want to see any other information, or if you have anything else, we're working with communications on updating these. So anything from formatting to design to other information, just let us know.
Anybody have any comments on that right now? Nope. Okay.
Yeah, I do, actually.
Okay, let's talk after, because it's
Okay,
not
that's fine.
on
Yep.
the agenda.
Yep, let's
Yeah.
go. Yep, we already.
Okay. Looking for a motion?
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Man, under